Okay, this is section 4.3, number 11. And I'm going to switch over to that problem here. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Try to maximize this as much as I can. It says for many species of fish, I'm going to take a few notes while I read this problem. The weight, W, is weight. Is a function of length x. Where W equals K times x cubed. And anyway, it gives us the function W of x is 0.005 x cubed. The first question asks us to find the inverse function. Okay, so this is what I have right here. And in order to find my inverse function, I think of W of x as y. And what inverse functions do, it's basically the opposite of what the original function does. So if you have a ordered pair on a function xy, or AB, I should say, then on the inverse, it would be the ordered pair BA. The first thing you want to do when you find an inverse function, okay, is to switch your x and your y around. Now, if you go to view an example, and I'll go over that with you too, there is a step missing in there, so it's not real obvious where the final answer comes from. So when we find our inverse function, okay, and I'm going to list out these steps to find, and I'll just call it in general f inverse of x. So to find f inverse of x, we replace f of x with y. That's our first step. Then we want to switch x and y. That's our second step. Then we're going to solve for y. And that's the step we're on right now. And so when we go to solve for y, and this is the tricky part, they, you need to divide each side by 0.005, okay? But in my math lab, it's not going to like it if you have a decimal inside of a fraction. So I'm going to rewrite this as 1 over 0.005 times x equals y cubed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to find the reciprocal of 0.005. So I'm taking my, actually what I could do, I could just show you here on my make sure that you're seeing what I'm seeing. Okay. There's a Desmos calculator that works well when I'm doing a video. if I can open it up. So if I divide by 0.005, it's the same as 1 divided by, or the reciprocal of 0.005 is 1 divided by 0.005, and that's 200. So if you're thinking, when you look at the example, it's not real clear what they did to get that. So where I'm at now is I have 200x equals y cubed. Now, the final step after you solve for y is you have to write your answer correctly. You will replace y with f inverse of x. In this case, our inverse function is w. So I'm going to take finish this problem right here. I have y cubed equals 200x. And so to solve for y, to undo the exponent 3, I do a cube root. And so that cancels out my y. So this leaves me with my inverse function as being the cube root of 200, cube root of 200x. Okay, so now you're going to have some follow-up questions after that. And so I'm going to go back to my problem here. So I have cube root, and here's my little deal I need to click on. I have 3 on the outside, 200. And you know what's crazy is they don't even need this radical simplified. They'll accept it like this, but they don't like, my math lab is in they don't want to see a decimal inside a fraction, but it's okay if you don't simplify your radicals. I'm going to check my answer. Okay, so now it says, what does the inverse function give? Choose the correct answer. Okay, so originally we know that, and let me go back to my little board here. So my original function, w of x, gives x is the length, w of x, or y, you can think of w of x of y, that's the weight. So for my inverse function, my length is the y value, or the inverse function, but now my weight is what I put in to my inverse function. That's my x coordinate. So I'm going to go back to my problem here and answer the questions. So what does the inverse function give? X is the weight. So given the weight, the inverse function calculates, not the species, that's silly. Given the weight, the inverse function calculates the length. So given the weight, that means given the X coordinate, that's weight. So I'm going to go here. And a fish that weighs 135 pounds is how many inches long? So I'm going to take my inverse function, cube root of 200x, and I'm going to plug in. You can't see what I'm doing, so I'm going to stop this, share. I'm going to take 200 times 135. This is what I'm going to put into my calculator right here. Okay, so I'm going to use my Desmos calculator because the 84 emulator doesn't work well with Zoom. Zoom's always problematic. So let me go to here. And, oh, here we go. Here's a little nth root. So my root is 3. And I need, in parentheses, 200 times 135. Close my parentheses. And then I get 30. And I think it's going to have you interpret that answer. So what I like to do is I like to label. It makes me think, now my length is what I get out. So that's probably in inches. And my weight is what I put in. So I got 30 inches as my output. I think it's in inches, I believe. So it's 30 inches long. And in any of these application problems, everything has to be positive. You can't have a negative weight. You can't have a negative length. So choose option B, where everything's positive. And if you went to the question help and did the view an example, when you go through where they have a very similar one, they have 0.025 x cubed, and then somehow all of a sudden they go through the steps and you see 40. So where the 40 came from is by dividing each side by 0.025. They're saying they're dividing each side by 0.025. So if you take 1 divided by 0.025, then there's your 40 that they get. And that. So anyway, I hope that helps.